Ladies and gentlemen, it is 6 minutes past the hour of 3 p.m. Karibu sana. Once again, welcome and thank you for joining our session on time. My name is Gabriel Achaye. I am speaking to you live from the East Africa Law Society House here at PPF Njiro. I bring you warm greetings from the management and leadership of the Secretariat. This afternoon, we are honored to be having this very important discussion on global technology and asking ourselves on the readiness of the African lawyer. And this afternoon, we are honored to have a very rich panel of practitioners with a wide range of experience in terms of practice, but also visionaries who have seen the trajectory that the profession and the globe is taking. Happy Nane Nane holidays to our listeners from Tanzania. Thank you for joining. For those who are joining from other places, Nane Nane is a public holiday in Tanzania where we celebrate farmers. I know many of you might have heard of the Nane Nane in Nairobi. Probably my sister Elizabeth will tell us more about the Nane Nane when she comes on. But we are honored to have you this afternoon. And this is yet another important webinar session where we try to have a conversation on technology. As you all know, the world is already undergoing the fourth industrial revolution, and lawyers cannot be left behind. And that's why we're having this very important conversation with you this afternoon. So this afternoon, we're privileged to have our panel moderated by Ms. Elizabeth Mosikali. Ms. Mosikali is the chairperson of our East Africa Law Society Corporate Law Committee. She is a lecturer of law and a practitioner. You're welcome, Ms. Mosikali. You have the next 2 hours to tell us more about this revolution that is happening. Over to you, Elizabeth.
Right. Thank you very much, Gabriel, for that introduction. As you've heard, I'm Elizabeth Mosikali. I'm an advocate of the High Court of Kenya and a lecturer of law. And I'm also the chairperson of the EALS Corporate Law Committee. And I'm honored to be one of the moderators for today's session, together with my co-moderator, who I'll first introduce, and then she'll talk to us a bit about the International Bar Association before we get into what we're discussing today. Right, so my co-moderator is Bishepo Shabangu, who's a trademark practitioner, and she has 2 degrees from the University of KwaZulu-Natal and an LLM from the University of Bonn in Germany. She's also an attorney of the High Court of South Africa and a notary public. Additionally, she has 2 decades of experience in the local international selection, clearance, prosecution, and registration of trademarks. And she has expertise in trademark audits, IP portfolio management, and due diligence investigations, as well as IP drafting and policies. Also, she has extensive knowledge in corporate governance and has sat in boards of various trusts and companies. Welcome, Shepo.
Thank you, Elizabeth, for that generous introduction. And good afternoon, esteemed panelists and all of you taking part in the webinar today. The Bar Issues Commission has been eagerly waiting to collaborate closely with the East Africa Law Society. And what better way to kickstart our collaboration with this very topical and timeless webinar, which I, for my part, hope that it will be one of many that we will be doing together. Perhaps before we get into our program for today, let me briefly start by introducing what the International Bar Association is and what we do there to maybe some of you who might not be aware of us. The International Bar Association was established in 1947, and its membership consists of over 80,000 lawyers, that is individual lawyers, as well as bar association and law society around the world. We have a number of divisions at the International Bar Association, And the main two divisions is the legal practice division, which has got all areas of legal practice and also looks after the regional fora, such as the Africa Regional Forum. And the second division is the public and professional interest division. And that division has got three subdivisions, which is the IBA's Human Rights Institute, which we call it IBARI, and the other one is Section on Public and Professional Interest, SPPI, and the Bar Issues Commission. And the Bar Issues Commission, that's where Stephen and I sit, and we look after over 190 law societies and bar associations from around the world. So the BIC, which is our section, is quite happy to start on this journey with East Africa Law Society. And without further ado, I will hand back to my co-moderator, Elizabeth Musikali, to start the proceedings of the day. Elizabeth, over to you.
Right. Thank you very much, Chapo, for that brief introduction. I'm sure the East Africa Law Society and its members are eager to this collaboration. Right. So today's webinar is titled "A Global Technology Revolution: Is the African Lawyer Ready?" And so far in this particular century, it has been proven to be an era of rapid global technological development, as it continuously witnesses rapid development of advanced electronic gadgets, cutting-edge technology solutions, digital technology, machine learning, Internet of Things, fintech, blockchain, etc., which are all savvy buzzwords of today's contemporary conversations. They promise to further change the dynamic as we know it. The problem is that lawyers have not fully grasped the reality of this wind of change as it sweeps around the globe. And lawyers by nature are not adapted to being dynamic, especially in Africa. The legal profession is traditional and it often romanticizes systems and rules, no matter how old or unnecessary they become, and often rejects change by habit. Furthermore, legal practice is faced with a particular problem, which is that the landscape of business is changing ever so fast. And society is steadily and completely moving, but the profession is decidedly behind at all times. It simply has not kept up. However, some exceptional law firms in Africa have embraced technology to solve their clients' problems. As more and more clients demand tech solutions relevant to Africa's business markets, the legal tech community is growing and evolving. Legal tech includes a broad spectrum of software and technologies designed to support the legal industry, from document management systems and legal research tools, which are powered by AI, contract analysis, and blockchain for secure transactions. Now, for African lawyers, adopting these technologies presently and in future is essential in order to meet the evolving needs of their clients. So in this webinar, which ELS has collaborated with the Bar Issues Commission of the International Bar Association, we'll have a discussion on whether legal practitioners in the region are ready to embrace the global technology revolution, while exploring the opportunities available, and also look at a focus of what the future holds for legal practice in East Africa. Now, additionally, we'll also explore the opportunities and pitfalls of using legal tech and AI, including generative AI, ethical considerations, and professional obligations when considering using the same. Now, we have 4 speakers today, and I'll introduce the first speaker today, who is Ramathan Abubakar. And he's the managing partner at Ramadhan Mukira and Advocates LLP. Specializes in civil and commercial litigation, electoral law and litigation, broadcasting and media law, arbitration and dispute resolution, as well as employment and relation matters. He's also, importantly, the Vice President of the East Africa Law Society, a member of the Law Society of Kenya, and this basically reflects his commitment towards the legal profession in the region. Additionally, he's an advocate of the High Court of Kenya, a certified professional mediator through MTI East Africa, and his academic background includes a postgraduate diploma from the Kenya School of Law and an LLB from the Catholic University of Eastern Africa. Now, he has a lot of a broad range of legal interests, and he's particularly focused on employment law, constitutional law, and county government law, environment and land law, admin law, family law, criminal law, and sports law. Karibu, Bwana Vice President.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Madam Elizabeth, for that introduction. Confirm you can hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Can go ahead.
Perfect. This is a very exciting day. It's our first engagement with IBA and our members here in East Africa. It's absolutely exciting. And as Shepo said, we look forward to more collaboration. Our topic today is quite timely, as it has been introduced by Madam Elizabeth. And to dive right into it, just a minute. I'm having trouble with my machine. Apologies. You can see my screen?
Yes, we can see.
I'm trying to hit next. I don't know why it's not moving.
Right. Let me introduce the second speaker as, and then my colleague will introduce the other two speakers as Mr. Ramadan attempts to sort the issue. Right, so our second speaker for today will be Dr. Victor Lando, who's an advocate of the High Court of Kenya with an LLB degree from the University of Nairobi and a master's degree in human rights and democratization from the University of Pretoria. He also holds an LLD, or a Doctor of Laws, degree from the University of Pretoria and is the managing partner of Lando Law Advocates LLP. He has 16 years of experience in the legal sector with a specialty in human rights, regional integration within the EAC Treaty Framework, gender inequity, good governance, humanitarian refugee law. And he's also been a consultant with a number of reputable institutions, such as the National Gender and Equality Commission of Kenya, the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights, the Kenya Ministry of Justice, the National Cohesion and Constitutional Affairs, and the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees, amongst others. Furthermore, he served as a senior legal counsel at the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights, as well as a protection officer within the United Nations Commission for Human Rights. And he's a human rights expert within the UNDP panel of experts and has written extensively on the subject of regional integration, human rights, and good governance. Additionally, Dr. Lando serves as the Dean of the Riara Law School in Nairobi, where he teaches constitutional law, public international law, human rights law, amongst others. Karibu, Dr. Lando.
Okay. Thank you very much, Elizabeth, for that glowing introduction. It's a pleasure. Colleagues, IBA, and everyone on board, thank you so much for making time to be with us. Yes, so do I make my presentation now, or is this introduction of the panelists?
I believe you can go ahead.
Okay. I think Ramadan is screen sharing, so let me allow him to share his screen first.
Right.
Because I'm seeing he's online.
All right.
Yeah.
Yes, Ramadan, go ahead. Thank you.
Sorry about that, Lando. I'm hoping now it will now perfect. I have no idea what happened. Yeah, thank you. I'll begin by stating that according to the 2023 Stanford AI Index report, the deployment of AI has moved significantly to the era where new large AI models are being invented almost every month, according to this particular report, and where it quotes and states that capable of an increasingly broad range of tasks from the text manipulation and analysis to image generation to unprecedentedly good speech recognition. These systems demonstrate capabilities in question answering and generation of text, image, and code unimagined a decade ago. And they had performed the state of art on many benchmarks, old and new. However, they are prone to hallucination, routinely biased, and can be tricked into serving nefarious aims, highlighting the complicated ethical challenges associated with their deployment. From this quotation, you'll agree with me that there is indeed need to offer guidelines or regulations when it comes to legal tech and AI. Therefore, the rapid rise and exponential growth of AI systems and technology has obligated all sectors of the economy to see how to harness on these changes. The legal profession should not be left behind, and that is where the law societies will, of course, come in. But before I delve into my presentation, allow me to speak a little bit about the East Africa Law Society. The East Africa Law Society is the apex regional bar association of East Africa, and it was founded in 1995 with a group of lawyers with the support of leadership from the national bar associations across East Africa. Its membership is of about 35,000 lawyers and comprises of also of the national bars of East Africa. That is the Law Society of Kenya, the Tanganyika Law Society, the Uganda Law Society, the Zanzibar Law Society, the Rwanda Bar Association, the Burundi Bar Association, and the South Sudan Bar Association. Membership is, of course, either individual or by institution. Our mandate as East Africa Law Society involves to fast-track the integration of East Africa communities through targeted support to cross-border commerce, the legal profession, civil societies, business communities, and governments. We also have the mandate to develop capacity of the legal profession to respond to emerging challenges to businesses, governance, and trade. We also promote the rule of law, good governance, and human rights through strategic litigation before the regional courts, and this is the East African Court of Justice and the African Court. We also do have a mandate in terms of, we do this through, of course, through capacity building initiatives to members and community-based organizations. We also do support the EAC institutions of IALA, EACJ, and the Secretariat and the apex bodies of the developing tools aimed at realization of the EAC integration. Very well, back into it. My topic of today is the role of bar associations in guiding lawyers using legal tech and AI, including generative AI. I believe it will be important for us to begin by defining what is legal tech and AI. Legal tech refers to the technology that will assist the lawyers and the law firms in delivering legal systems more efficiently. This includes tools for case management, document automation, e-discovery, and legal research. I'm sure in terms of case management for Kenyan lawyers, we've interacted with some of these tools, one of them being Wakili CMS, a proper case management tool. AI, particularly generative AI, goes a step further by enabling machines to perform tasks that typically require human intelligence, such as drafting documents, predicting legal outcomes, and even generating new content based on the vast amounts of data. This will include tools like ChatGPT, Stable Diffusion, Whisper, and DALL-E 2. Several legal tools that we may need to also familiarize ourselves with. In terms of the role of bar associations and law societies in guiding lawyers using legal tech and AI, including generative AI is multifaceted and crucial. These organizations are responsible for setting ethical standards, providing education and training, and ensuring that the use of technology in legal practice adheres the principles of justice, and of course, the rule of law. In terms of all the bar associations and societies across East Africa, they do have a regulatory framework. And for the Law Society of Kenya, you'll find it's the Advocates Act and the LSK Act. For the Uganda Law Society, it is the Uganda Law Society Act, and the the Tanganyika Law Society, they have a specific act. The Zanzibar Law Society is guided by the Societies Act. The Rwanda Bar Association is guided by Law number 83 of 2013. And the South Sudan Bar Association also have the Advocates Act like Kenya. The Burundi Bar Association do have the Statute of the Legal Profession, that is Law number 17 of July 2023. These particular laws will outline, most of the time, they will outline the functions and powers of the Bar Association, which will include regulation and supervision of the societies. And we also have the promotion of legal education. And in terms of the Advocates Act, you'll find that is for the South Sudan Bar and for Kenya, you'll find they'll have, in terms of the admission and the enrollment of advocates, the regulation of the professional conduct, and of course, the establishment of disciplinary bodies. And perhaps to add, in terms of professional conduct, the Act's mandate that advocates adhere to the highest standards of professional conduct, which includes the ethical use of technology in legal practice. You'll find this in the Code of Conduct of the Kenyan practitioners. We also have other laws that will, of course, guide us in the usage of AI. This will be data protection laws that we may have in our specific countries. For Kenya, we have the Data Protection Act 2019. It's a crucial guiding tool or law in usage of AI and legal tech, particularly in relation to data privacy and protection. The key provisions here entail the data processing principles, the principle of lawfulness, fairness, and transparency, which are essential when using AI and legal tech. We also have the rights of data subjects. This includes the right to be informed, the right to access, and the right to rectification, which lawyers must respect when using AI and legal tech. Now, in terms of an overview of bar associations and law society. Bar associations and law societies are professional bodies that represent the interests of lawyers and the legal profession. They are also involved in shaping the regulatory framework for the use of legal tech and AI. You therefore agree with me that law societies are responsible in terms of regulating the conduct of lawyers, and the principle here has always been self-regulation, where the bar societies are in charge in matters concerning the lawyers, and that's why most of the bar associations across East Africa will come up with a code of conduct. So in terms of regulating the conduct of lawyers, there is the need to ensure that lawyers adhere to the ethical standards and professional conduct, where each law society has its own professional code of conduct, as I've just stated. And where a lawyer perhaps breaches any of the provision of the code of conduct, they may be disciplined by the law society and be subjected to sanctions, including reprimands, fines, practice suspensions, and in the most serious cases, disbarment. We also have the role of providing continuing legal education, as law societies offer training and resources to help lawyers stay updated with legal developments, to facilitate case studies and knowledge sharing with some of our members who may have an expertise in a particular area of law. So the law societies can achieve this by developing platforms for legal professionals to share experiences and strategies and regularly update the legal community on emerging trends and effective responses to technology challenges. There's also the role of developing policies, where bar associations create policies and guidelines that govern the use of AI and legal tech in legal practice. These policies, of course, will be developed in collaboration with the government bodies, even the legislature or otherwise, to develop laws that regulate the use of AI and technology in the legal sector. The law societies have a mandate to promote consistency in the various state laws to ensure consistency and reduce jurisdictional risks. There's also the role of monitoring compliance, of course, of the guidelines or regulations that will govern lawyers in terms of usage of legal tech. We also do have another class of role, that is the ethical guidelines and standards. Bar associations and law societies play a role in establishing ethical guidelines for the use of legal tech and AI, and these guidelines may include confidentiality and privacy, where, of course, lawyers, depending on the laws that are there, as I've mentioned, the Data Protection Act, to ensure that in the usage of AI and legal tech, maybe, for example, if you're using ChatGPT, before you even enter the details, perhaps of your client on the chatbot, you must be mindful of the confidentiality. You wouldn't want to share details or personal details of a client. Therefore, there is need for guidelines to adhere to the ethical guidelines and standards that may be provided by the specific bar association. Because you'll agree with me, confidentiality is a cornerstone of legal practice. We also have the aspect of competence, and in terms of competence, because as lawyers, we must maintain a level of competence in understanding and using AI tools. This includes being aware of the limitations and potential biases of these technologies. We must ensure that they have the necessary competence to use legal tech and effectively and ethically. There's also the aspect of transparency and integrity to ensure that even as we use the legal tech, we are transparent, and in fact, perhaps even revealing to the client that indeed in the brief that we were given, we used AI, and perhaps it may have a discount in your fees if there was no full utilization perhaps of your mind, just thinking. On the aspect of integrity, lawyers must use technology in a manner that upholds the integrity of the legal profession. When it comes to education and training, of course, the bar associations have a role to play in training and helping lawyers to understand and effectively use legal tech and AI. The bar associations across East Africa will, of course, regularly organize the trainings and programs. This may include workshops and seminars, and which will, of course, offer sessions on the latest developments in legal tech and AI, including practical demonstrations and case studies. We may have online courses, providing online resources and courses that lawyers can access at their convenience. Also publications, by publishing articles, guidelines, and best practices on the use of AI and legal tech in legal practice. You can see that's an image of myself being or receiving knowledge from Ugandan lawyers on matters digital rights. There's also the role of the advisory and support services, where legal tech, or rather, the bar associations can come up with committees, for example, legal tech advisory committees, to assist in matters AI and legal tech. At the ELS, we have about 44 committees, and one of these important committees is the Committee on Technology, Media, and Telecommunications Committee, whose key mandate is to spearhead discussions on legal tech developments across the region, among other functions. Committees are very important because they create the guidelines for the ethical and effective use of legal tech. They'll also provide advice to lawyers on the best practice for using technology in their practice. There's also the aspect and role of collaboration and innovation. And this is by partnering with tech firms. This is a proposal perhaps for law societies to see how they can partner with tech firms and developers of these legal AI tools. And the objective here is to foster the development of tools that align the lawyers with ethical obligations. And of course, where input is given by the lawyers, you can imagine the system that can be created by these innovators as we guide them, we as practitioners of the law. There's also the role of, or rather the proposal that law societies can also have innovation hubs and incubators. And I'm inspired by the developments in the United States, where in the state of Utah, they have something called a regulatory sandbox. And this regulatory sandbox is where they test new methods of legal service delivery, a concept that is also under consideration by the California State Bar, where essentially the regulatory sandbox provides a controlled environment or safe space where innovative products, services, business models, and delivery methods can be tested under regulatory supervision. This allows these innovations to undergo trial runs without immediately facing regulatory consequences, enabling regulators to assess their impact and benefits to the public before formal implementation and regulation. There's also the aspect of to coordinate with stakeholders, as I had mentioned earlier, the judiciary and the legislature. Bar associations ought to closely coordinate with stakeholders in the justice system, such as the judiciary and legislature, to evaluate the need for further regulations pertaining to the practice of law and the use of legal generative AI products. Also, in terms of advising on curriculum for legal education, one of the key roles of any bar association is to promote professional development in the profession. This stretches from continuous legal education to education in institutions teaching law. In this vein, one of the key roles of bar association is guiding practitioners in using legal tech, is to advising institutions of learning on including aspects of legal tech, AI, and generative AI in the school curriculum. I had a chat one time with a lecturer from the University of Free State in South Africa. And for her, she allows her students to use ChatGPT as long as they reference and have footnotes on the same. Therefore, this is being incorporated in some of the universities. In terms of a few proposals and recommendations to make ourselves ready, and even to the bar associations, is to further assist lawyers in assessing and utilizing legal AI tools effectively and ethically. Law societies could implement several initiatives, and one of them is by having checklists and guidelines, by developing checklists and guidelines. These documents will outline considerations such as data privacy, confidentiality, competence requirements, and ethical implications. They will serve as practical resources for lawyers to evaluate in terms of the usage of AI tools responsibly. We also have the recommendation that we have technology ethics opinions. This is borrowed from the American state bars, where they have technology-specific ethics opinions, and these opinions will offer detailed guidance on ethical considerations related to legal AI tools, helping lawyers navigate complex issues and adhere to professional standards. So we'll also have a registry of approved AI legal tools. Law societies will establish and maintain a registry of approved legal AI tools. This is for purpose of keeping ourselves up to date in terms of these tools that can assist us in our practice, in our law firms. In terms of also increased CPD in legal technology, building on recent developments, African law societies could expand their continuing CPDs programs focused on legal technology. As we've seen from the Stanford report, technology is changing every month. And there's, of course, competition from these tech giants. Therefore, there is need for us to keep ourselves up to date on the changing technology. Yeah, I also came up with two case laws. As a litigation practitioner, I I'll have done myself a disservice and yourselves if I didn't put any case law. We have these two cases from Kenya, and we have the one is the Law Society in Kenya versus the Attorney General. And this case was emphasized the role of the Law Society of Kenya in advocating for the rule of law and ensuring that legal practices adhere to ethical standards. Therefore, ethics is a vital component in practice. The Republic versus the Kenya School of Law and another. In this particular case, it highlighted the importance of legal education and the role of the Law Society in ensuring that lawyers are adequately trained and competent. And this will include, of course, matters concerning legal tech. Yeah. And that's the end of my presentation. And in conclusion, I wish to state that bar associations and law societies play a pivotal role in guiding lawyers in the use of legal tech and AI, including generative AI. They establish ethical guidelines, provide education and training, and shape the regulatory framework to ensure that the use of technology in legal practice adheres to the principles of justice and the rule of law. I wish to also commend the bar associations across East Africa for doing a great job in holding webinars on matters legal tech, and specifically for the Kenyan bar. I know they're having something next week in Diani concerning matters legal. And with that, thank you. Been a pleasure.
Right, thank you very much, Mr. Abubakar, for that presentation on the role of bar associations and law societies in guiding lawyers using legal tech and AI, including the use of generative AI, and for emphasizing the importance of continuous professional development that is hosted by the various law societies in the region. Right. I'd like to encourage our participants today or our attendees to use the chat box or the Q&A section where they can ask the panelists any questions, which we'll address towards the end of today's session. So we'll go right into the second presentation for today, which again, I had already introduced Dr. Lando, so I believe we can go ahead and have the presentation by Dr. Lando, who is going to take us through the forecast of the future in of the legal profession in the midst of the technological revolution. Thank you very much and welcome.
Great. Thank you very much, Elizabeth, for the introduction. And thank you so much, Abubakar, for that introduction as well, giving us the role of bar associations in in ensuring that effectively the tools that we have available. I am attempting to share my screen. Let me see if it is available. Yes, it looks like it works. Screen. Okay, are you able to see my screen? All right. So I can just on with it. Now, for me, I'm a teacher of law of the law school at the Law Advocate LLP, and so I'm speaking from the perspective of both someone in legal education as well as someone in legal practice. So my presentation will just look at two main areas of how law is taught in law schools and then the influence of technology on the practice of law. Because the tech revolution has influenced very many professions across the board. And for us as lawyers, then we must also start thinking and continuously think of how we harness technology to influence or to enhance the practice of law and also legal education. So firstly, I will look at a few snippets. It's not a very detailed thing because this is we have limited time, so I'll just take around 10 minutes. So technology will influence how law is taught in schools and what we teach in law schools, but also it has influenced the practice of law, how practitioners engage in terms of the whole spectrum of legal practice, how technology has influenced that. So I will start with the teaching of law and then the practice of law. And first of all is on influence of technology on legal education and training. Of course, we have had the traditional methods of teaching, including lectures, case studies, moot courts, and all that. And so we progress in Africa and globally, we will need to devise new ways of legal education to ensure market-ready lawyers who are able to handle the challenges of the 21st century, but also lawyers who are 21st century someone who's very aware, who's technologically savvy, corporates who know what they want, and they want to keep the costs low and enhance their profits. And so as lawyers, we need to be able to understand the needs of our clients and then devise ways and means of providing solutions to our clients. So as we teach law and as we practice law, then our students and the lawyers who are coming into the practice environment need to be able to be market ready and need to be able to enhance um, their responsiveness in the 21st century. And therefore, technology is influencing, number one, how law is taught. And Abu Bakr had mentioned something about using technology, AI, in legal research and legal education. Yes, technology has revolutionized how law is taught. For example, all universities across everywhere, they transformed into online teaching and online learning. And so we are still implementing the use of technology in terms of delivering quality education, teaching law using technology, also other aspectional experiences. So we can have a university in London working with the university in Uganda, and the professors in London are still able to teach the students in Uganda, so that we have a more internationalized law student, internationalized lawyers. The use of e-learning and online learning, and then integration of AI into legal research and scenario building and brainstorming using AI. Of course, I am an advocate of technology, yes, but I do not advocate for students to copy paste what is on Perplexity or Gemini or ChatGPT. No, I can allow my students to use AI to brainstorm, but the final product should be from their own analysis and their own brains. And so, yes, how law technology. And so, as law schools, we would need to then think of how, because Bakar also mentioned that bar associations are an important stakeholder in terms of legal education. And therefore, as teachers of law and practitioners, and as lawyers, we need to then influence, because the bar associations are representative bodies of lawyers in practice and in different endeavors. And so, faced with legal education, we ensure that, yes, we use technology, but in a responsible manner. And then technology has also influenced what is taught in law schools. So there's how we teach and what we teach. And one thing that we need to do is to adapt in our curricula basic digital skills for the 21st century lawyer. You cannot be a vibrant lawyer now and you have no digital skills for operating in the online environment. Even for business development, as a lawyer, you need to be able to engage with, for example, social media. How do you use it for business development? How to engage with your clients and all that stuff. And therefore, basic digital skills for operating in the online environment are important. Secondly, there are new courses that are being offered, even professional courses that are being offered, even post your graduation and quality. AI and ethics, because it is companies that you represent that are to ask you for legal advice in terms of what are the ethics. If it's a tech company, they will require you to give them legal advice and legal support to develop their AI system. So as law schools and as lawyers, we need to start thinking of what are these emergent areas of law and how do we upskill? And then secondly, new nuances in existing fields of law. As we teach civil procedure, for example, I'll draw from the Kenyan experience. We now have virtual courts. We have virtual e-filing of cases. We have proceedings happening online. When you are teaching civil procedure, how do you teach your students to be able to operate in the online environment? How do you teach advocacy skills, litigation skills in the online environment? So it changes the whole thing of how you teach or how we learn. And we also need to relearn as well, advocates in practice, relearn in the online environment, how to do conveyancing or land or real estate transactions using the systems that are put in place, and therefore, and ask people in the legal education to how we teach law. Of course, in terms of legal practice, the tech revolution, very many opportunities who say that, oh, AI technology has taken away our jobs as lawyers. My thinking is that there are so many additional opportunities, especially in Africa, because Africa is the future and Africa has the nation on earth, and everyone is coming. We have the resources, you have the personnel to be able to make a mark, the global sphere. And therefore, there are very new areas of law, and I've just put like two on the screen. There's AI ethics and law. How do we advise our clients? Data privacy and data protection. It cuts across from compliance, due diligence, and new areas of law. How do we upskill ourselves so that when your client from New York calls you, you're able to give them the Kenyan context? If someone from Germany calls you, Germany operates under the GDPR. How will you in Tanzania advise them in accordance with the privacy law in Tanzania, because they will need to be compliant? And therefore, there are very new opportunities, many opportunities being created. And so to my next, in the context of the tech revolution, because traditionally law practice is more face-to-face, client meetings, we go to court. I was having a joke with my colleagues the other time. We, in Kenya, for example, we have a cohort of lawyers who have never experienced court. The real, unless you're doing criminal law, but if you're doing civil litigation post-COVID, courts went virtual, all the way to the Supreme Court. And so we have not gotten into a courtroom. They litigate from the to upskill, to retool ourselves to cater to the 21st century client. Okay, and so not only for law students, even for those of us in practice, as practitioners, how do we retool ourselves to cater for the 21st century client? And the 21st century client is an international client. Okay, they are not guys who operate on the local level. Well, some of them may operate on the local level, yes, but a large majority of them are now people who are able to find information and things online, and you will need to be able to engage with them in that context, that they are not the old timer type of client. And therefore, how does, for example, legal tech legal practice to automate and make easier legal processes? If you are, if you're house counsel, your in-house, if you work for the Attorney General or military or wherever, the processes, the documentation, the risk has been highly influenced by technology. How do we harness that technology to make our work easier? All right. Then technology has also influenced or transformed the client-facing services that we offer. The clients who are now very well informed. Let me draw from the when you're transacting on real estate, there is the account for the purchaser, there's the account door, and then the buyer and the account for the surveyor or whoever professional. And all this face on that system. And therefore, client see what you are doing online. Even in litigation, when you go to court and something is updated online, the CTS, the system that we use in Kenya case management, a prompt is sent to your client. So the days of us lying to our clients that, oh, something has happened, and you know the way lawyers creatively engage with their clients to try and manage your clients, those days are because the client is able to access the online link and get into court for a mention, just a mention. Pre-doing a mention, the client need not be there. You handle the mention. And if you're unprepared, you go and tell the court whatever you tell court to seek an adjournment because you are not prepared as an advocate are done. Because now the client will go to the online system, get a link to, and will be, the client will ask you, what happened? The client has access, can be able to access basic stuff about the litigation process. And so you cannot manage, your client as such. So there's a lot of transparency in that whole process. And therefore, the client-facing services that we offer have also been transformed by technology. And so technology has made legal service provision more efficient and more democratized, so to speak. So for example, online case filing, virtual courts, automation of processes, online transactions. And therefore it calls upon us as lawyers to do what Abubakar was saying earlier, integrity, make sure that, we are on the same page with our clients, that we do not do funny things because we think the client is not aware. Our clients are very aware and they want accountability, they want value for their money, and therefore technology has influenced that. All right. Of course, there are new areas, and I'm saying read opportunities, and the technological advancement. So, for example, the ethics and law relating to AI. Who drafts those policies? Who advises on those things? Data privacy. How do you advise your clients in terms of those things? Cybersecurity law, the tech companies that are coming up, how do you advise on that? And then, of course, you have other fields and that are being impacted by technology, and therefore there are opportunities for you to provide targeted services in different sectors like health. You advise your clients. E-mobility, what are the inherent legal issues in e-mobility? Climate change, what I think the chairperson or someone to sit in the rights due diligence. Intellectual property, things like AI, where AI is able to recreate images and all that. What are the intellectual property considerations? You know, present opportunities for lawyers to provide their input in all those areas. So there are new areas of law, are the ordinary, the traditional structures in the modern law firms, and maybe the bar associations will give us guidelines on this. Must you have a or in Australia?
Right. I think we've lost Dr. Lando.
I am back. Sorry about that. It happened, but
Yeah, all right.
I think I'm almost done actually
Okay.
with
Okay,
my
just go ahead
presentation.
then.
Yes. So again, with the issues of networking, we may need guidance from our bar associations in terms of just regulating and telling us how do you do that. And of course, it again presents an opportunity for online clients or online services working across jurisdictions. And then as I proceed to conclude, there are inherent risks, of course, for law firms in this context, because with the advancements in technology, with quantum computing and all that stuff, what will happen is that law firms must safeguard sensitive client content. Previously, we used to have files, physical files. All law firms traditionally have a registry where you keep all the physical files. But now we are transitioning into more having e-files and electronic storage of documents, sensitive client information. And therefore, as lawyers, practitioners, we need to ensure that there's data security measures, cybersecurity systems, because increasingly law firms will be hacked because you hold client information, sensitive client information, and therefore, how do we guard against that? And then another one is internationalized in terms of law practice. Law practice is territorial, but then again, now we are having the 21st century client who is more international. You can get a client from New York, get a client from Serbia, get a client from any corner of the globe, and they want to operate locally in Uganda or Tanzania. Are you able to provide that kind of support? And so we need to figure out how to ourselves as African lawyers able to respond to the global market and the most of us in the civil society space, technology is improving access to legal services to underserved populations. So then how do we creatively use technology to be able to provide legal services to those who may have traditionally not been able to access legal services? You know, online chatbots, virtual legal consultation applications, increased availability of legal resources online. So how do we then, as advocates, contribute to that? To, number one, create the content that will be placed available online at the disposal of the population. So that is also, if you're in the civic space, why can't you then create opportunities for availing legal support, availing legal services to previously underserved populations? You know, then there's online dispute resolution mechanisms. I know, for example, e-commerce. There's a time I was buying something on Alibaba and it was not what I wanted. And so I had to tell them I don't like this product. It is not what I wanted, and therefore I want a refund of my money. And they used some AI technology thing to determine the validity of the complaint and to it and to resolve it, and they sent me back my money. Low-level disputes, you know, we can, as lawyers, work with tech people to create a system where for the level disputes, you can harness AI so that you need not spend a lot of time drafting a plaint, drafting an affidavit, bringing exhibits and witnesses to court for a dispute of $50, $20, or $100. Lawyers can create address those low-level disputes, leaving the high level to be done by lawyers. You know, so that presents an opportunity to use AI and use technology in terms of online dispute resolution mechanisms. That happens across the globe, from just litigation, arbitration, mediation. And as I conclude, we must adapt to provide more than just legal services. We must understand our clients' business needs, solutions for the unique legal nuances presented by these technologies. And of course, we must possess the relevant legal skills to understand the shifting landscape. And lastly, I am not a prophet of doom. What I'm saying is this, that law is not going to be obsolete, to stay for quite some time. What we need to do is just to retool so that we're able to appropriately respond to the nuances and the challenge. Yes, so thank you so much for your time. And I hand it back over to Elizabeth. That is a very brief exposition. Thank you so much for taking your time.
Right. Thank you so much, Dr. Lando, for that very insightful presentation and for highlighting the importance of the use of AI in the legal field, but not just amongst advocates, but also amongst law schools, for us to be able to encourage your students to use the readily available technology tools like ChatGPT, but in a more ethical manner. And as well, the opportunities available for advocates. You've talked about online dispute resolution and all of that. Now, again, back to our attendees, we'd like you to, if you have any questions, you can put them up in the chat box or in the Q&A section. We will address them at the end of the session. So I'd like to hand over to my colleague, my co-moderator, Shepo, who will introduce the other two panelists, and then we'll take it from there. Karibu, Shepo.
Thank you very much, Elizabeth. Our next two speakers are Stephen Richman from the US, and then we're gonna also have Mrs. Namirimu Elizabeth Gomez. But I'd just like to say briefly about Stephen's background. Stephen is a man of many accomplishments, but I will not be able to do justice to all of them. So I will only point out a few. Stephen holds a degree from New York University School of Law and is a member of Clark Hill PLC, which is based in Princeton and New York. And basically, he has a national and international litigation, arbitration, and appellate practice. Stephen speaks extensively in the areas of international law, business law, and human rights, contracts, litigation, and arbitration, as well as professional responsibility. He's a past chair of the American Bar Association's International Law Section, serves in its House of Delegates, and is the ABA representative to the United Nations. Steve is the senior vice chair of the IBA's Bar Issues Commission, and he co-chairs the IBA Wellness Commission and serves as a director of rule of law for the International Association of Lawyers Institute for the Rule of Law. Stephen has spoken and written extensively on cross-border arbitration, enforcement of judgments, and interim relief issues. He has also published widely, but I will only touch on one of his, the inclusion in one of the publications, and that is Ethical Issues for Business Lawyers under the United Nations Guiding Principles. He has published on the area of business and human rights. Stephen is a recipient of the American Bar Association's International Law Section, and he's also was awarded the Award for Private International Law in 2022, as well as the section's Lifetime Achievement Award in 2023. Stephen is closely involved in the AI task force of the IBA and is well placed to address us on this topic. Stephen, I will just hand over to you now, and then I will introduce Namirimu when you're done. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Shepo, for that very generous introduction. In order to ensure enough time for the speaker after me, I'll try to keep this to 20 instead of the 25 minutes, do the best I can. I will share the screen and go through this. Okay, can people see the screen? Shepo, is it visible?
Yes, it is visible indeed. Okay. Thank you.
So, thank you. The prior two conversations and presentations really covered quite a bit of territory. I will try to be more specific on some of the details and explain a bit of what the IBA is doing. Hopefully it won't be too repetitive. First, we need to understand what we're talking about. As I think was said earlier, artificial intelligence covers a waterfront. We're really talking about generative artificial intelligence here. There is simple automation where people use it in research for word searches. There are certain self-teaching programs. And basically, in the context of due diligence or reviewing and pulling out certain contract clauses, these are more rote functions. What we're talking about with generative artificial intelligence is the generation of new content, not finding content, but generating new content. And the past few days, I was at the American Bar Association's annual meeting and listened to an expert talking about this. And she explained very succinctly that the point of generative AI is not just to generate content, but it generates content from its resources. And this is why you can get content generated that may make no sense. For example, some of you are familiar with the incident in the New York federal court where lawyers submitted a brief that had been made completely through generative AI, ChatGPT, and it made up cases and it made up quotes that didn't exist. Why did it do that? Because its purpose was to generate content. And if it couldn't find anything relevant, it would generate it. You have now some of the legal research entities like Westlaw or so forth who are using generative AI in research, but they're at least, presumably, it's limited to their database, real cases. So that's really the one cautionary note, and it was enlightening the way she explained it, that don't blame the AI program if it makes things up. That's what it's supposed to do as it generates content, which leads us really to the next question: is AI practicing law? Now, as I said, we have the incident just now where the artificial intelligence program, ChatGPT, generated brief, but it made it all up. You also have prediction study programming for AI, where if you feed in information with regard to cases, the facts and the law, and the particular judge and so forth, the program can predict the result. What's interesting about this is in the study that I note in the PowerPoint about the decisions of the European Court of Human Rights, it had a prediction rate of something in the around 80-something%, if I recall. In my jurisdiction, trial judges are reversed about a third of the time, which means there's a 67% prediction rate. So the question is, in some ways, does AI have a better track record at the trial court level than actual lawyers in terms of getting it right, ultimately in terms of the result? I say that tongue in cheek, but it's something to think about. People are concerned about the use of generative AI, in terms of judges. What if judges start to use it in terms of trying to figure out an opinion? It's good to think about AI simply as a tool, even generative AI, and not the end product. It may help you organize, but it's not going to yield the ultimate result without human oversight. We use AI, not so much generative AI, but as part of due diligence functions. There are uses of AI in patent drafting. It's come across the full spectrum of litigation. Interestingly, within the past couple of years, Japan the Minister of Justice issued a ruling that the use of generative AI is not the practice of law for purposes of regulation of lawyers in Japan. However, they still can be regulated and would be held liable for their end product if it were negligent or otherwise incorrect. So that's an important point to bear in mind. AI, like other non-licensed lawyers, may actually be doing law. The question is how you regulate it, or should it be regulated like other provision of legal services that is not done by lawyers. Which brings us to the question of how we do regulate lawyers. It's also important to distinguish between societal regulation of AI, which deals with some of what you heard before, governments issuing laws to regulate the use of artificial intelligence and take care of issues such as privacy and so forth, versus the issue of regulating lawyers in terms of their professional conduct. When we talk about ethics, the non-lawyer may think ethics is the equivalent of morality, but when we talk about ethics as lawyers, we're talking about professional regulation. What can you be disciplined for? if you violate a rule of professional conduct, you can be suspended or disbarred. That's a rule. It's not necessarily the same as what somebody may consider from a moral standpoint the right thing to do. And the question now has become whether or not our rules are appropriate or can keep up. We also talk in terms of the implications for clients and law firms. There seems to be a common sense that this is a large firm issue. It is not. Every lawyer, from the solo practitioner to the largest firms in the world, face the same type of questions. Some people have been concerned that when large firms use AI, it disadvantages the smaller firm. On the other hand, some have argued the use of AI, particularly generative AI, helps the smaller firm level the playing field. Then it becomes a question of cost. Can the smaller firm pay to keep up with the larger firms, and whether or not that should be an ethical requirement. We've talked about whether jobs are lost or gained. Some people are concerned, and bar associations looking to protect lawyers are concerned that the use of AI may cost lawyers jobs. On the other hand, many have argued that it frees the lawyer and enables the lawyer to do more of what a lawyer should be doing, and this has a benefit to the client. Other issue being raised before we get to the ethics part are whether AI-generated products can be admissible evidence. In New York, there is a bill that was introduced into the state legislature that would deal with how you evaluate AI-produced evidence. Let's suppose you have a piece of a fingerprint, and you use generative AI to expand on that and generate the full fingerprint. Now, fingerprints are unique to the individual, and somebody can be convicted and go to jail based on fingerprint evidence. And if the evidence has been generated by AI, how do you evaluate it to make sure it is admissible and meets appropriate safeguards for admissibility of evidence? This bill would attempt to address that. I mention that because when we keep thinking about AI, we haven't really focused on all the ways it can be used. We've already been through Photoshop and have dealt with photographs and admissibility of evidence. Now we're in a completely new generation. But let's talk now about how lawyers and their ethics rules are impacted by particularly generative AI. From the first two presentations, you've heard quite a few common denominators of what ethics rules will address. As part of the IBA, the International Bar Association's Artificial Intelligence Project, the Bar Issues Commission focused specifically on rules of professional conduct and what other bars have done in this regard. And generally, you'll see the focus on competence. Lawyer needs to know sufficiently about the technology in order to practice law competently as a subject matter expert. Confidentiality, when you're using AI, what are you inputting? Be attentive to who has access to it, and so forth. Supervision. I mentioned the case where the AI generated a brief and the lawyers simply submitted it. It was pretty stupid, actually, because one of the lawyers in defense said, well, he used the AI program to site check itself and make sure it was correct. There's complete lack of understanding of the limitations of these programs. And that's why I mentioned what this person said the other day. It's important to realize that generative AI is doing its job. It is generating content from what it finds available. And if you're not controlling what is available, and if you're not reading it and supervising it, then you have a problem. We've talked about integrity and honesty. I heard that in prior presentations, and it's also part of the IBA, the IBA principles. For example, in the IBA, principle 2 is honesty, integrity, and fairness. A lawyer at all times should maintain the highest standards of honesty, integrity, and fairness. And this also implicates what you present to the court, what you present to your adversaries, what you present to your clients. When you're negotiating, it's not all related to litigation. If you're negotiating a contract and AI has generated certain clauses for you, you need to have looked at them to make sure they are appropriate for your client's needs and position, whether in litigation or negotiation. Another common theme is the reasonableness of fees. Now, who do you charge for your use of AI? Is it overhead, like when you buy a book for your library? Or if you are using AI, if you would have taken an hour to review something, and AI reviews it in 5 minutes, and you take 10 minutes to review the AI, you bill for your 5 or 10 minutes of review time, your actual time. You should not be just billing the 1 hour that you might have taken without the AI. These are issues that will come up as people use AI more and more, how you apportion the fees and what you bill. And this is a universal issue because at least all the jurisdictions with which I'm familiar address the reasonableness of fees and their ethics rules. Diligence, how quickly and how responsive you are, also implicates the use of AI. And independence, as I've said, the AI generated product needs to be reviewed. It can't supplant you as the lawyer. Also, if the client is insisting that you use certain AI and you're not comfortable with it, you need to have that conversation with the client. So we've talked a little bit about competence. The IBA general principle is that you carry out the work that you're asked to do in a competent and timely manner. Many jurisdictions have this. I've indicated the rule from Kenya that I found. You have a duty of competence. Now, the ABA has added a commentary to this principle to say that competence includes understanding the benefits and risks associated with relevant technology and in continuing study and education to comply with those educational requirements. The IBA has now also adopted a similar commentary to indicate that competence must include awareness of the technology, which includes AI and generative AI, in order to do the work that you are asked to do. Doesn't mean you have to be the world's leading expert in generative AI, but if you're going to use a particular generative AI program, you need to have some rudimentary understanding of how it works. And I agree with the comment made, I think, in the first presentation about the need to include in law school curriculum. It's not enough to teach legal writing anymore. You need to include understanding the technology. I won't spend too much time on confidentiality because it's been addressed earlier. But again, when you're using AI, you need to understand when you put in information to ChatGPT, things like that, where it's going, what the precautions are of the AI entity that you're using. It's similar to the concerns we've had when we outsource to other entities outside the firm certain legal work. Supervision is key. You have obligations to supervise not just junior or other lawyers you work with, but lawyers outside the firm and also the entities that you deal with. This includes use of cloud services where information is stored offline. The same issues of how the confidentiality of information is protected needs to be considered. We've talked a little bit about integrity and honesty. If you're using, after the incident I talked about where the lawyers submitted the brief that was filled with fake information, some judges were issuing orders now that required lawyers to sign an affidavit that they've actually reviewed it. Other people felt that's not necessary because you already have the ethics rules to cover this. and that, at least in the US, when you sign your name to a paper filed in court, you've certified already that this satisfies it's truthful, the facts are correct, and as for the law, you've accurately stated the law or taken a position where the law could reasonably go. And various bar associations around the US and around the world have issued guidance. The factors that I mentioned earlier, some of them are mentioned, others add different things, but the core ones are found in pretty much all the advisories and opinions that I've seen. I've talked about fees. I don't want to spend more time on it because of the limitation, but this is an important issue. If you're going to be licensing or paying for artificial intelligence programming, that is probably going to remain overhead for you and not be passed on to the client, unless the client insists that you use some particular program. But the way to deal with that as a practical matter is have your upfront conversation with the client and discuss it in your engagement letter. Communication with the client is a key thing as to your use. Client needs to know what you're doing. You need to understand why the client wants particular things done. Under the US rules, the client sets the objectives and can tell you how they're to be reached, subject to your own ethical constraints. But if you have a disagreement with the client, you either work it out or you may even have to withdraw from the representation. Point is, deal with this up front with the client as part of your communication obligation. Diligence is often linked with competence. I won't say more about that. I've already discussed the need to understand the AI that you're doing. And independence, again, should you be using case prediction software? How much can the client control how you practice law in terms of representing it? You need to bear this in mind. And again, deal with it in your engagement letter. One of the things that's happening now and as part of the IBA project is the need to consider harmonization. You need to think about the cross-border practice that someone mentioned and be aware of possibly competing ethics rules on this. The ABA just issued an opinion within the past week on this, and they identified the same core areas: competence, which can depend upon the type of practice involved as to how much knowledge you need about the particular technology; confidentiality, I've talked about with those risks; the need to communicate with your client as to the use of AI, and making sure your claims are meritorious. You can't have an AI-generated cause of action if it's not part of the law of the country or your state; candor to the tribunal; supervision; and fees. So I would conclude that the two major threads that we've been talking about are the use of artificial intelligence as a substitution of certain legal functions lawyers use, and the ability of the lawyers to use AI instead of them doing it. However, the second thread is that there must be supervision. Lawyers must remain involved. You cannot simply turn over AI-generated product either to an adversary, a court, or your client without your having made sense of it. I will give you a final example of this. There are certain programs online where you can sell photographs and you submit your photograph. One of them I've noticed recently is now generating a description of the photograph through its AI generative function. So that's all well and good as far as it goes, but it may get it wrong because it's simply looking at the resource available to it, what it sees in the photograph. It won't have the specific place or name. It's only limited to what it can pull up to generate. Garbage in, garbage out, no matter how sophisticated and intelligent the program is. So bear that in mind when you're using generative AI as a practical matter, and be aware of the core common denominators of ethics principles that I have been seeing shared across the world, including in Africa, by different bars. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Stephen, for that insightful presentation. Whilst it is very clear that AI, and including generative AI, is very important as a tool to use when delivering legal services, you certainly demonstrated that there are some pitfalls to using that, and lawyers have to be aware of that. At the end of the day, we are the ones who are professionally responsible to take responsibility for the end product. And we must remember from what you've highlighted that we must think as AI, as a tool to produce the legal product and not the end product itself. Thank you for that, Stephen. Now, going along, we've got our next speaker, Mrs. Namirimu Rebecca Gomez, and she has an impressive resume. Ms. Namirimu studied for her LLB degree at Uganda Christian University, and then she went on to do her LLM at the University of Cape Town, and currently she is studying for her PhD, which happens to be in AI and the law at the University of Cape Town again. Namirimu has 8 years of experience as a lawyer in practice. She heads up the undergraduate studies program of the School of Law at Uganda Christian University. She has held various prominent roles in esteemed law firms in Cape Town and Nairobi, and handles a broad spectrum of cases from high-stakes litigation to intricate transactional matters. Her practice encompasses wide areas, but I will just highlight that she deals with civil and criminal litigation, human rights, and most recently, cyber law and artificial intelligence. Namirimu is recognized for her contributions to the legal field through research. She has published in the East Africa Law Society Human Rights and Rule of Law Journal. Her area of research interest includes artificial intelligence and the law, as well as cyber law. She is regarded as a passionate advocate for the responsible development and deployment of artificial intelligence. And Namirimu actively participates in academic discussions and conferences to promote awareness and understanding of the legal dimensions associated with emerging technologies. So she as well is best placed to really assist us on this topic. Namirimu, over to you, please.
Wow, thank you so much. Sometimes you listen to people speak about the things you have done and you think, wow, is that me? But thank you so much. I'm going to try and keep this under 30 minutes. On my side, it says it's 4:39. I think we should end by 5, right? Ms. Shaban?
That's correct.
Okay, so I'm really going to try and ensure, actually 30 minutes might be a bit much. Maybe I make 15 so that we have time for Q&A. My assignment for today is a simple one. I was asked to speak to the impact of legal tech and AI on the legal profession. Allow me to combine the impact with the opportunities, again, because of the limited time that we have. So firstly, an opportunity as well as an impact is the fact that as lawyers and as people who are teaching the law, AI gives us the ability to be more productive and work efficiently. If you look at the fact that AI can rapidly analyze large volumes of documents and identify relevant information, as well as patterns and inconsistencies more effectively and more efficiently than we could. What comes to mind is AI tools like there's Jira Systems, which is a leading AI-powered software platform that is designed to assist us in the legal profession. It helps us to analyze and manage large volumes of documents, specifically in the context of contract reviews and due diligence. How Jira System does this is it uses machine learning. When I talk about there's not a lot of time to go into the details, but basically machine learning is AI tools are using algorithms to learn based off the data that has been introduced to them. So if you want the tool to help you with reviewing contracts, for example, you introduce it to a certain amount of contracts. And if you need specific clauses, let's say it's termination clauses, you train the tool to be able to pick out termination clauses over, let's say, 100 contracts. By the time you introduce it to 100 and to the 101th contract, it knows exactly what your expectations are. Sometimes this machine learning happens unsupervised, other times it's supervised, but that really is a conversation for another day because of the time constraints. So we have apps like the Jira system. We have apps like the Ross Intelligence. Ross Intelligence was built on IBM's Watson. IBM's Watson is a powerful computer system, of course, that was created by IBM, and it uses AI to build, to help build or to help businesses and organizations solve complex problems or to make better decisions, and as well as to improve its efficiency. So Watson can read and understand human language, which makes it useful for things like answering client questions through chat boxes or analyzing text to find important information. Sometimes you visited a website and you've seen at the bottom of the website, a chat box just pops up and it takes you through a series of questions. So basically, these are some of the things that IBM's Watson can do. And Ross Intelligence, that was built off that app, is also another AI tool that can help us to rapidly analyze case law. It analyzes statutes. It analyzes legal precedent to provide relevant legal information and insights. So basically, it helps us to find relevant cases, especially if you don't have a lot of time and you have a bunch of proceedings to sit down and write. These tools come in very handy. We have eBrevera, we have Luminance, we have what you call Seal software, there's TextIQ, there's Evaluate. There's so many AI tools that have been created to help lawyers become more productive and more efficient, as well as we have tools that help us with to enhance our legal drafting. What comes to mind is AI-powered tools like Westlaw Edge, which uses AI and machine learning to enhance legal research by providing predictive analytics, advanced search capabilities, as well as relevant case law. If you've done a research for a few years, you've come across what we call LexisNexis. So this LexisNexis also has its own AI tool that you can use to deliver advanced search results or case law analysis and insights. This includes tools like Lexis Answers, which uses natural language processing to provide direct answers to legal questions. When I talk about natural language processing, it's basically a process that the AI uses to understand human language. For example, if you have an Android gadget, and you've downloaded Microsoft Word, Microsoft now has the option where you can click on your audio and you tell it exactly what to do, or it can read back to you. So the fact that you're telling it what to do, that is what we call the natural language processing, where as a human, you're able to speak to this artificial tool and it understands what it is that you're telling it to do. And so it can, the output that it gives back to you is as expected. The only way it can understand that is what is a process that we call the natural language process. The other impact as well as opportunity is that AI helps us with cost reduction. And when we speak to cost reduction, it's basically about lower operational costs. Automating routine tasks, of course, diminishes the need for extensive human resources, significantly cutting down operational expenses, which might help law firms to increase their turnover in terms of profit. Of course, we also have the fact that with cost reduction comes enhanced productivity, which leads to cost saving that can be passed on to the client, making legal services more affordable when legal professionals or law firms use tools like some I've mentioned above and technologies to improve their efficiency and productivity so they can perform their work more quickly and with fewer resources. So this increased efficiency results into lower operational costs, like I'd mentioned, and the cost saving is once again transferred to the client. It also results into affordable legal services in the sense that AI and legal tech make legal services accessible to a broader audience, including individuals who might not have been able to afford the lawyer. Like the speaker before me who had mentioned that if you're sitting and you're using AI, instead of having spent an hour, if it had just been your legal mind, if you're spending 10 to 15 minutes because you're using AI, how do you go about billing that? So this 10 to 15 minutes reduces the billables, which makes legal services more affordable. Moving on to my next slide. Please forgive me. I hope it doesn't feel like I'm just rushing through this. I'm just looking at the time and there's not a lot of it. So I'm trying to get in as much as I possibly can, given the time. The other advantage and opportunity with using AI tools is that it helps us to make better decisions. AI can analyze historical case data to predict outcomes of current cases, which helps lawyers to develop more efficient strategies. For example, if you use tools like Ravel Law, which offers tools that analyze judicial opinions and legal trends, it has an option that we call Judge Analytics. Judge Analytics provides insights into how specific judges have ruled in the past, which helps a lawyer predict how the ruling or judgment might come out in their present case. Because with Judge Analytics, it will focus on judgments from a particular judge over a course of about 2-3 years, and it will be able to help you pick the thinking, the rationale of the judge. And so you know that, okay, I'm appearing before this person, but this is how they think, and this is how they are likely to rule in my matter. So it helps us make better decisions in terms of presentation. Like they say, a good lawyer is not necessarily one who knows the law, but one who knows the judge. And AI tools like Ravel Law are helping us and making it that much easier for us to learn the people whom might appear before. Another tool that comes to mind is CoCounsel. CoCounsel uses AI to analyze historical case law and legal precedent. Inside of CoCounsel, we have an option that is called Context. This Context tool helps to identify relevant case law and provides insight into the likely outcomes based on past cases. So it's not very different from what Ravel Law does. Moving on to client and service delivery, I think it was his name has skipped my mind, but the dean from Riera School of Law spoke about the fact that they have lawyers in Kenya who have never had an actual in-court experience, and this it can be a good thing because AI, of course, has changed how we interact with clients and how our services as lawyers is delivered, because now we have virtual assistants and chat boxes, which are AI-driven, and they help us handle client inquiries. They help us schedule our appointments, and they provide basic legal information, which enhances client engagement and client satisfaction. So a client does not have to wait for 24 hours, 48 hours, whatever, or the time when they walk into your firm to get a response. If we have these tools in our law practices or our schools of law, then when I say people, clients are able to get answers that much faster. Of course, AI can also analyze client data to help us in the legal profession offer personalized legal services, as well as tailoring advice and solutions to the client's individual needs. tools that can help us do this is one that comes to mind is Ross Intelligence. Ross Intelligence is an AI tool that, of course, uses AI to analyze client queries and legal documents. It provides personalized legal research and insights based on the specific needs and context of each client. So initially it would have been that you have to sit and read the pleadings or read the file or read the plaint of a particular client to understand the story. But now with AI, our lives are that much easier because you get this information and upload it in Ross International and Ross Intelligence, and it is able to almost accurately pinpoint the specific needs of each client. So instead of handling a client over 30 minutes, you might find yourself handling about 3 or 4 with the help of these AI tools. I'll move on to my next slide. New business models I've hinted on that when I talked about, no, actually, I think it was the Dean from Riera School of Law who hinted on this when he spoke about virtual law firms and virtual court sessions. So technology is allowing lawyers to operate virtually, which reduces our overhead costs that are associated with physical offices. It's also allowing us to attend court virtually, which also helps us to be more efficient and reduces the cost associated with moving to and from court and whatnot. The other advantage opportunity with using AI tools is that legal tech and these AI tools enable the creation of online platforms where clients can access legal services remotely, offering convenience and expounding market research. Like the Dean from Riera mentioned, that now a client is able to log in and attend a mention for themselves, which in my opinion is an awesome thing, and it helps us to be more efficient and better organized. About data-driven insights, basically AI provides insights into client behavior and preferences, which helps law firms to tailor their services more efficiently. For example, if you look at AI tools like Power BI, Power BI is a Microsoft tool which integrates various data sources to create interactive reports and dashboards, which law firms can use to track performance metrics. Law firms can use this to track financial data as well as to operate more efficiently. Allow me to really go over this because there's a lot of noise there's a lot of noise and concerns concerning AI, and it's simply because of the algorithms that the AI tools are fed, and people are very concerned that issues of bias and fairness might increase. When we say bias, an AI tool is only as good as the algorithm that has been fed to it. My goodness, it's almost 5. Okay, I'll share the slides.
Just please proceed.
Okay. So AI tools are only as good as the data fed to it. Now, the data that an AI tool is fed, the data that this tool is fed eventually translates into its algorithm. Allow me to just quickly break down this issue of algorithms by using ourselves. As human beings, we are walking algorithms in the sense that there's a certain way our brains function. Your brain will wake up in the morning and it will tell you, go to the bathroom, go have a shower, brush your teeth, get dressed. At a certain point in time, get into your vehicle, drive to work. As you drive to work, you listen. Like, our brains have a routine. It is the exact same thing with artificial intelligence, of course, based off the data that you feed it. So if you're feeding it biased data, for example, if a law firm wants to hire and the person that was training this algorithm kept putting data that favored men or the male gender as being more aggressive and better positioned for the field, when it's time to hire, it's going to sort the applications in such a way that disadvantages the women, which is unfair. And of course, it will only do that based off the biases that was fed to it based off the data that it was fed off. I don't know if this makes sense. I'm really trying to rush through this, but yeah, I hope it makes sense. The other issue is issues of confidentiality and privacy. Our business requires a huge amount of privacy. When I speak to our business as lawyers, we are interacting with people at their most sensitive points. They are divulging a lot of information that they would require and appreciate that we kept private. But if we get all of this information and we feed it to AI tools, what happens if somebody is able to hack into these tools or hack into the system? Out goes the issues of confidentiality and privacy. So all these part of the concerns that are in the field, because if your system is hacked, privacy is gone, issues of confidentiality, same thing, and the system might not even necessarily be hacked. It might just land in the hands of competition, and they're able to access this information. So confidentiality with clients, again, is brought into jeopardy. The disadvantages, which I've kind of hinted on when I talked about ethical and regulatory concerns, issues of confidentiality, issues of privacy. There's also a lot of IP here. People in the IP field are making a lot of noise because of generative AI. The other disadvantage with lawyers relying on AI tools is issues of reliability and accountability. Allow me to start with accountability. The way that algorithms being the foundation of any AI tool, the way that algorithms usually behave is that they operate in what we call black boxes. And black boxes are quite opaque. Inside of the black box is like the brain of this AI tool. Now, while you can study how the human brain functions and how the human brain works, there's not a lot of study so far that has gone on that can help us understand how the black box functions. So there's so many questions concerning the black box. So if an AI tool makes a mistake, who is going to be found accountable? Is it the person who created it? And if it is the person that created it, because we have tools that can create their own algorithms. So you create a tool, for example, to do one thing, and while you're training it, feeding it all this data and helping it birth its mother algorithms, it goes ahead. This happens especially with unsupervised learning, unsupervised machine learning. So as you're training it, it now picks up what it is that you're training it on. Let's say you've given it 100 books to read on, and it is able to create by itself the 101st book. Your mandate as a human being was to train it on 100 books that you can be found accountable for. But now who is going to be found accountable or liable for the 101st book that this tool has gone ahead and created? And let us say that tool has gone ahead to create some level of harm or whatnot. You also have issues of reliability. The speaker before me mentioned that AI tools can be hallucinate. And he mentioned that there was a case in the US where a lawyer relied on a generative tool, and the tool went ahead and generated case law that never existed, facts that never existed, and it was simply doing its job, which is true. But if that is how it is with these AI tools in legal tech, then you can't exactly rely on them because they are hallucinating. And as lawyers, you'll be embarrassed in court to rely on facts that are even non-existent simply because an AI tool had a moment and generated something that was not accurate. Lastly, there's a lot of concern about job displacement and skill shift. I've interacted with people who have out of the school of thought that AI is a bad thing because it's going to take away so many jobs from human beings. That is partially wrong and partially right. There might be a few job losses for people like paralegals and depending on the level of lawyer, junior lawyers, but at the end of the day, these tools cannot practice law, and these tools have been proven to hallucinate. So in my opinion, for the legal field, I don't see a lot of job displacements or skill shift, because even if a client was to say, you know what, this is my case, let me go to AI and Google my defense or ask ChatGPT to give me a form of defense, the accuracy of it in terms of the authorities and the facts, the accuracy of the facts and precedent used might be questionable. So with job displacement and skill shift, I'm not too concerned about that. Please forgive me for having kind of rushed through this. I'm ready to share my slides if there's need for them, and allow me to hand over to our moderator. Thank you so much. That is it from me. I'll just stop sharing my screen.
Thank you, Nimirumu, for yet another insightful presentation. More specifically, I'd just like to thank you for unpacking some of the AI tools that can be used to deliver legal services. And it was very useful from my perspective to hear about a number of these. You've mentioned IBM's Watson, Ross Intelligence, Luminance, Judge Analytics, which is from Revolo, and Co-Counsel AI. Perhaps a number of us would like to have a look at those and maybe test them out to see how they are working. I do not regard myself as a digital native, and I must confess that I've been very scared at the beginning, when AI was introduced and legal tech. And, the argument was that they were going to take over our jobs. But upon educating myself, and again today on listening to all the speakers, it has brought home that there's no need for us to actually be scared of legal tech and AI. It will never replace lawyers. In fact, it can be used to make us more effective when practicing law. But the most important thing is that we take responsibility as lawyers, because ultimately we are the ones who are responsible. Just in conclusion on this, I wanted to mention something I picked up from the Law Society of England and Wales, which might be very useful and which has come out in a number of all the presentations that we've heard today. And some of on the risks that, the pitfalls that can arise when using artificial intelligence. One of the risks, which a number of you, Dr. Lando has touched on, Miruma has touched on, is intellectual property risk, which as an IP practitioner is something that we have been looking into. And more specifically, the potential infringements that can arise of copyright, trademarks, patents, and so forth, and the disclosure of confidential information. Also, the other issue is that when you are buying AI as a lawyer, because it's quite expensive, we have to consider whether that is. So on that basis, I will hand over again to my co-moderator, Rebecca, to continue. Sorry, Elizabeth, can you hear me?
Right.
Yes,
Elizabeth? Okay. All right.
I think we
I
both called
just
Elizabeth
wanted
herself and Rebecca. Sorry.
Yeah, I just wanted to hand over to you so that you can lead us in the Q&A.
Right. I believe because of time, maybe what I'd ask our panelists to do, maybe in 30 seconds each, because we don't have a lot of questions in the chat box other than the issue of sharing of the presentations. Again, this session is recorded, so you'll find this presentation on YouTube and on the EALS Facebook page as well. And the presenters have also agreed to share their presentations. So I guess I will ask each of the panelists today to give us their closing remarks. We're a bit out of time, and then we can end the session afterwards. I will give my closing statement as well. Maybe we can start with Stephen, and then go to Mr. Abu Bakar, then Victor, and then finally Rebecca.
Thank you. The common theme of all the presentations, at least from my perspective, was with regard to the ethics rules, and they do apply. And technology has become a critical part of competence. I would encourage you to look for the IBA's Artificial Intelligence Report, which is coming out shortly, which has an appendix prepared by the BIC of what various bars are doing. And we'd be very interested from your respective bars for any information you could share with us. Thank you. It's been a pleasure to be here.
Thank you, Stephen.
Thank you. On behalf of ELS, we want to thank the IBA for agreeing and collaborating on this particular timely topic. Also wish to thank the attendees for always attending when we call upon them to attend to our webinars. And concerning the topic, I want to stress that indeed it is time for we lawyers to see how we can harness matters legal tech and AI because these are important tools in our practice. Yeah. So I've learned a lot from Rebecca in terms of highlighting the tools that are in existence. Some of them I've never heard of them. There was a question on the chat box in terms of the tools that I had mentioned. One of them was ChatGPT 4. There was Stable Diffusion. This is a legal AI tool that creates images once you input in the chat. It is also Whisper. Whisper is a very important tool. It transcripts speech. In fact, if you had Whisper on here, it could have transcribed everything that we are saying, and it can go further into identifying who was given a particular task. We also have the Dell E.2, which is also an image tool. With that, thank you. This was quite informative and always a pleasure. Thank you.
Yes. Good evening once again. My final remarks just to thank ELS for organizing this webinar. Thank you so much to IBA for also being part of this process. Thank you so much to our colleagues from the EAC for also just giving us a useful feedback in terms of all the aspects of technology and technology and the law. My final remarks would be this, that there's a lot of regulations, rules, guidelines being developed, as Steve has mentioned in his presentation, and the other panelists have also mentioned in their presentations. And unfortunately, lawyers are not participating effectively in the development and the conversations around some of these regulations. And so my challenge to us as lawyers, as the bar associations, as practitioners, academics and advocates and lawyers is to find out all those spaces where all those regulations are being developed, not only in technology, but also in other spheres. But most importantly for this purpose is technology, that we be present in those forums and we give our insights as advocates, as lawyers, so that we are not left out of the conversation, because sometimes the techies who take, they take the conversation, or other policymakers, so that let us also be part of the policy making and the regulations and all those conversations. Let us not shy away and wait for disputes to arise. Let us be involved in the policy development and the regulations and all those things, because at the end of the day, it is us who will be providing services to our clients on the basis of those regulations. But other than that, thank you so much, everyone, for being with us. Thank you so much, Elizabeth. Thank you so much, all the participants and the IBA and ELS for bringing us together. Thank you so much. Have a great evening.
Right. Rebecca, your closing remarks?
Right. So I just want to tell lawyers that there's so much that we can learn from AI. AI is not a bad thing. I've come across a lot of information. People are worried and scared of dealing with AI. It's not necessarily a bad thing. There's very many AI tools that we can use to make our lives easier. Let's learn as much as we can, because AI is really here to stay, and it's only going to keep progressing. So I think that is it from me. Thank you for the opportunity, and thank you for having me.
Right. Thank you very much. So, ladies and gentlemen, we've come to the close of today's session. And our panel discussion, which was basically on global technology revolution and whether the African lawyer is ready. And I'd like to express my deepest gratitude to all of you who've made this event, our session, a success, and most importantly to our distinguished panelists, because you've made time for us. Your expertise, your perspectives and contributions have enlightened us and also inspired us to reflect deeply on the future of AI in the legal profession and not shy away from embracing the use of technology. Thank you for being so willing to share your knowledge and experience in this particular field. And again, I'd also like to thank all the attendees and participants for their engagement and even for continually logging into these sessions. As we move forward, may we all continue to embrace the opportunities that technology presents, while being mindful of the challenges that have been brought up or that come with it. Because as we know, as we've seen, the legal profession is undoubtedly intertwined with technological advancement. Then lastly, I'd like to thank my co-host, Shepo, for making time for today's session and for making it easy to do this moderation together with you. And maybe you have a few final words from myself. Thank you to everyone, and yeah, that's it. Have a nice evening.
Elizabeth, for your generosity and really working closely with me to ensure that it's a success. My last remark is just to say, continue educating yourself on AI and the use of legal tech in the practice of law. I have picked up a book which has recently been published by Globe Law and Business, How to Buy Legal Technology That Works. It's worth a look. Maybe you might just have a look at, see if something you can use in your own practice if you're looking at buying AI, and continue sharing the tools amongst each other. Thank you.
Right, I believe that is it. Thank you, everyone, and have a nice evening.
Thank you very much.
Have a good day. Have a good day in the US.
Oh, yes, have a good day.
Thank you. This was great.
Thank you, everyone.
Take care.
Bye.